Hey guys, Mike here. So, oh boy, another red day in the market, and it was definitely volatile, that is for sure. But the S&P did accomplish something it has not done in 2024, right? It might surprise you what that is. We're going to go into that, the charts, talk about Tesla because Elon's tweeting again, and looks like people aren't very happy. You might have noticed that. Might have noticed the semiconductors are red today. Again, we talked about two really important stocks this week. One report this morning. I'm going to tell you exactly what they said, and wink, wink. Wasn't very good on their end. Okay, there's three phases to this whole semi earnings deal here. Okay, there's people that make the equipment, make the chips, and the people that actually has the chips to sell. Right, they're the ones really generating all the revenue, really, when you look at it. And so we'll go into that right there because we're entering phase 2 tomorrow when Taiwan Semiconductors reports, right, because they make like 80% of the chips in the world. And then I'll also show you that. You want to know what runs the world? What is it? It's money, right? It's not love. And so when I show you this right here, this chart about the amount of assets some of these companies have under them, I'm talking investment companies, it's staggering. One really surprised me. I had no idea it had that many trillions in assets, but it does. So anyway, we'll get into that. And then also when it comes to the generals, the Microsofts, the Apples, all the big ones, the FANG stocks, stuff like that, you'll notice a trend that really is happening because it happened to one of them today, and another general just started showing some weakness and broke a major trend line today. So that will help the market go down even farther if that's what it wants to do. So anyway, you might have noticed semiconductors, whoo boy, took a hit, especially the big ones, right? The NVIDIA, AMD, just a mess. We're going to go into that chart. The MU, which is the flavor of the month, it was down. Taiwan Semiconductors, of course, reports in the morning. They're holding up pretty well, or held up pretty well today. But here's basically what happened. ASML. This is the company that actually makes the equipment that Taiwan Semiconductors and one other uses to make these chips, right? And of course, it was down about 10% at the low of the day, right? But here's what they said. They put this in the morning news brief. So they posted orders which fell short of the analyst expectation as Taiwanese and South Korean chip makers held off buying the Dutch firm's most advanced machines. Bookings at Europe's most valuable technology firm, wait for this, fell 61% in the first quarter. Here's what they had to say. Top chip makers like Taiwan Semiconductor and Samsung are holding off on new orders as manufacturers work through stockpiles of hardware used in smartphones, computers, and cars, okay? And so that wasn't good. The market's like, oh boy, okay. So now we go to stage 2, which of course we're going to talk about is Taiwan Semiconductors, who actually makes the chips. But you can see NVIDIA, look where it's at. It's almost at its 50 moving average. I think it's actually hitting in after hours as I'm looking at this right here. That is the first time it has touched its 50 since last year. Okay, so this will be the first touch in 2024. And actually, it touched the 100 there as well because the 50 was actually crossing below the 100 at the time. But if it breaks below the 50, I mean, you've seen what happens. Usually it's another 10, 12% down right there, as you can see in the last couple times that's happened. If it breaks, we'll have to see. But usually it is a bounce spot if we're going to get one, right? And a lot of this, we all know, is going to depend on Taiwan Semiconductors because they know what the orders are, right? Because they're making these chips. And so if they come out with, good guidance, great. All right. And, you can see, I mean, since the high was set, I mean, we talked about this. Actually, the high is over here, lower high and lower high. And so just set our second lower high right there. And we're just waiting to set a lower low, right? Because it's in that demand area, which is held up decent, right? And now we're hitting the 50. We'll have to see. We're still above, well above, actually, not well above, but $20 above the weekly expected move right here. And since markets have been selling off like crazy this week, eventually you are due for a bounce. And again, you got that gap down below right there, which puts it actually right at the weekly expected move. And so if we end up going down, which I know a lot of people want to see happen, to like this gap down here, which would put you at the 100, you're talking about an overall 30% drop, right? And who knows if that's going to happen. Again, all this could change tomorrow when Taiwan Semiconductor actually reports. But if they report bad, then we'll have to, I don't think chips are going to react very well. Now, AMD is a hot mess. Hey guys, before we continue, please hit that thumbs up. Really appreciate it. It helps people find the video. And think about subscribing if you like this kind of content. You can see by this chart, I mean, the head and shoulder is still playing out at this point in time, especially since it broke the neckline. We're below the 50. We're below the 100 moving average. We've almost hit that white line we actually talked about in Sunday's video. I don't know if it's going to get exactly down to it, but that would be the level where it was resistance twice and it busted through it and never retested it, right? And so this will be the first retest we actually get of this level. And so we'll see if that actually happens. But again, I mean, the 200 is way down there around 135. So I know a lot of people just love to see that happen. But again, we broke the other two. We'll see if they continue to sell off. We get a bounce there or not. Again, if this is, I mean, this is a ugly head and shoulders, but if the head and shoulders actually played out, and let's say this is the neckline right here, then you can see it would be, I don't know, right below the 200 moving average right there if it actually played out completely. And so that would be a massive drop. I can't imagine that's going to go that far down. But then if you got the 200, I think it'd be almost a miracle at this point in time, unless, again, Taiwan Semiconductor has its disastrous earnings and says, nope, the orders have dried up. We're not doing it anymore, right? But what was really weird about today was everything was red except for HYG. I'm talking about all the indexes, the equal weighted ETFs, the dollar, the yields, the VIX, and then there's HYG, right? But the fact the VIX, the yields, the dollar, and the index are all down, that is very strange. And don't forget, today was VIX expiration, but also we have OpEx coming up on Friday, right? So this is when you usually get some crazy shenanigans. But what do you have on the SPY right here? It went below its weekly expected move, sucked back up, so it's within it, and usually ends up within that, closing within that weekly expected move 68% of the time. But check this out. So now we have 4 red days in a row. That is the first time in 2024, it's almost 4 full months, we have had just 4 red days, okay? And you can see, obviously, when we really had 4 red days or more, it was during the last sell-off, and also there was one in December. So it's not like you get a lot of 4 red days, especially in a bull market or whatever. And so you can see things can cascade quickly. You do get some green here or there. You get some major rallies up, right? So that's the thing. You never know how long this thing's going to continue. And I know some people are predicting, 10%, 5%, 7.5%, that kind of stuff. And so again, that 4 red days, at some point in time, you're going to get a bounce. You have to get a reprieve bounce because they have to come back up to grab all this liquidity up above and then start heading back down if that's what they want to continue to do. But a lot of this is going to depend on earnings, right? I mean, if earnings comes in crap, you dang right, we're coming down here, we're going to fill that gap right there. There's no doubt about that. Maybe go down even farther to the 100 moving average, right? And so, but if earnings start coming in much better than expected, and then here we go, buckle up, okay? Now, when you look at Amazon, here's another general that's starting to actually lose support, right? 6 months on this trend line, we bounced and we bounced and we bounced and we bounced, just huge moves up off earnings and everything else. And it finally broke it today and closed below that trend line. And so, we got to continue to see the 50 is going to be the first place because what's it doing? It's coming into what will be a demand area, right? Where it consolidated. It's always good to consolidate. This is why. Okay, so it's got support there. All right. And so we'll have to see how this handles the support area and stuff. But one thing you notice when you look at, Amazon, what happens? I remember saying this. I said, when Amazon finally breaks and sets an all-time new high, is it going to do what Google did and actually sell off? And when you look, that's exactly what happened, right? Here's the all-time highs over here, right? Back in 2022. Boom. It eclipses it, immediately starts to sell off. Now, of course, the market started to sell off. But look at Google. Exact same thing. Eclipses it. Doesn't even hold up for, more than a couple of days. Boom. Big sell-off in Google, right? And Google's actually been holding up really well, by the way. Surprisingly, but it has. Out of all the stocks, I would never guess that would be the one. And so far, it's holding up above its all-time new high or previous all-time new high and stuff as it retested it and everything. But this isn't the only one. If you go back and look at all the generals here, Microsoft, right? It's here in 2021. As soon as it broke above, look what it did. Sold right off immediately, right? Because why? It's at all-time new high, and then we went into a market sell-off, right? But then you look at something like Apple, where we weren't in a sell-off. It ends up breaking the previous all-time high it set in 2023, right? And immediately, boom, that thing's been down, 19% since? And speaking of Apple, what's happening? It's coming into that support area once again. Let's zoom in. Let's see if, the buyers are going to come in around this 167, 168 range. They're holding it up right now. But again, that resistance above, that remains resistance. That's 2 rejections. But one thing we still don't have is a new lower low, right? We have a new lower high because it finished right below it. But we're waiting for a new lower low right now. And so we'll see if they're going to try to push this up again and just make this area an area of just, we're just going to ping pong back and forth because don't forget this is Apple, right? Second heaviest weighted stock in most of the indexes, the most owned stock out there, I believe, still in all the pension funds and everything else. But I'm sure most people want this thing to fall. I know a lot of people really to pick it up between like 152, 156, somewhere there is what they would love to see, which would be, a big drop down, right? But usually the things that are beaten down the most will turn first. But again, somewhere in this area right here is where people would love to pick this thing up at. And if that level breaks, most likely that's what's going to happen, right? Because it's already below all the moving averages. I'm just going to put a trend line in here, a support line, kind of mark that out. But, yeah, that would be nice. I mean, that's probably, if I had to guesstimate, total, actually I'm not even going to guesstimate, that would put it from this big move up right around the golden pocket area. And through this whole big move, we hadn't even hit the 50% retracement level. You know what I'm saying? So again, that will be another point to actually start, probably most people start dollar cost averaging in. But, because Apple's not one of these stocks that just has these crazy, crazy, crazy drops like a high beta stock or something. So, keep that in mind on Apple. Tesla, boy, Tesla, you might notice, dropped off a cliff again first thing this morning. It rebounded a little bit and all that good stuff. But, of course, what happened is, Elon comes out with a tweet because, he's saying we're not going balls to the walls in this whole autonomous driving thing. But it's an obvious move and stuff. And, of course, we know some vice presidents left and they're going to lay people off and stuff. And so, again, when it comes to Tesla, what you're really looking at, they just need a break. But the truth is, it's high rates. When you have high rates, people aren't buying a lot of cars. That's just the way it is, right? And so, and Teslas aren't super cheap anyway. Like most cars aren't super cheap right now. And so, they're not loving it. And you got to watch that white line right there because right below it is a gap. Right, and the gap fills right around 145.11, I believe it is, if it drops below that line. And so again, watch that. I mean, I'm sure we're hitting levels that most people didn't think we would hit, right? But that's what's happening. Every time you think it's going to pop and rally, something else comes out in the news, right? And so we'll see what else comes out about Tesla. But it needs good news out of China is what it needs. Now, obviously, earnings tomorrow for the second company we need to look at, Taiwan Semiconductors. That's the only one that really matters. But on top of that, you have Netflix, right? So, we'll see how the market's going to react to these things. It would be perfect to have them kill earnings, right? And then going OPEX, going super green or something. Now, you do have red folder news, initial jobless claims, continuous jobless claims, and you'll have a lot of manufacturing data coming out with the new orders and everything like that. Besides that, you end up with like a 5-year tips auction at 1 o'clock. And of course, some Fed speakers. But I will tell you this, though. You want to know who runs the world? It's BlackRock. Good Lord. Just look at this right here. 10.5 trillion in assets. Not just stocks, not just bonds, but real estate. And you may be thinking, well, it's got to be 10.5 trillion now because they're in the crypto market. It's like, no. The crypto market makes up just an inkling. I mean, just a hair. Look at that. That little red little line there. 0.18% of BlackRock's AUM. So it's not that. But the one that surprised me was this one right here. It was Vanguard. I got to admit, I did not know Vanguard was sitting that close to BlackRock. I mean, they're sitting there with, 7.8 trillion. This is actually 2023, so they've probably got over 8 trillion now, right? It's the latest one I can find with all of them on here. I mean, all the rest of these are just pennies, peons, 3 trillion. Get out of here. Get out of here. JP Morgan. Come on, man. Fidelity sitting there with only 4 trillion. I mean, those are the poor institutions. I'm just kidding, of course. But, to sit there and have 2 institutions with, actually, if you count up just like 5 of the institutions, it's more than our national debt, which is 33 trillion. I mean, that's crazy, right? To look at that number. And we all know what runs, not just the world, what runs our country, what runs our politicians, money. I mean, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, he wasn't joking when he said, I have every president going back to Clinton on speed dial. I mean, literally, they call him for advice on what to do. And I'm sure if he wants something done, he probably calls them. I'm willing to bet he writes some big old checks. But to have that much, good Lord, trillions, 10.5 trillion, over 8 trillion for Vanguard. Does that surprise you? That surprised me. I got to be honest with you. I did not know Vanguard was that big. I know it's a pretty great company, but I just didn't know it was that big. So, yeah, I mean, that's amazing how much it just keeps going up. And if they, really keep buying crypto, I guess it's going to be even more. Under assets if Bitcoin actually continues to go up. So, yep, anyway, so we'll see what tomorrow brings. Obviously, a lot of stocks are in good bounce points right now, and after 4 red days, at some point in time, you get a reprieve. That's just the way it is in any kind of sell-off. So, we'll see if tomorrow's there. They're going to wait till Friday and stuff. So, anyway, hope you guys got something out of it. Hit that like and subscribe button if you did, and I'll see you tomorrow.